Super grateful that you shared that with me. Michaela is one of our guest presenters, so I'm really excited that she was able to join the call tonight to just kind of hear more about how this works. Like I said, some of you are going to be in and out tonight, and that is totally fine. Let me see if I can share my screen and just get this going for everyone. Okay, if I share my screen, can you see it? Yes, maybe. So present, you can see my screen. Awesome. Okay, good. Okay, so I am so excited because I decided to launch a second um, grief retreat or compassionate women's retreat seems to be kind of my overarching theme because I really believe that this is bringing women together to show self-compassion as well as compassion with others. And then it's just been on my heart, and I'll share more about that as we go through the presentation, to invite women in particular into the conversation about grief. And so we focused in the fall on doing grief in real life, which is still a really important text for me in my grief work. There's some compassion type exercises and contemplations that Shay has created in this book. And I will share more about this with those of you who are coming to retreat, because I think it just provides a helpful basis for conversation about grief healing and the grief journey. But I also have some other things to share with you that are going to be unique to this particular journey, which will happen in the spring. So we are growing through grief this time around. A little bit about me before we get started. Most of you I know personally, but in case you're watching this and you're like, who is this woman and what gives her the right to talk into my life at this time? Just so you all know, at the heart of my service is I'm a teacher, I'm an educator. By trade, my interest is really in building up other women. I started using essential oils in 2007 when I was a mom of a 1 and a 3-year-old. They grew up and my business grew, and I've been able to do a lot of other things with my giftings. And actually, my mom was always really supportive of my work as a spiritual coach. I'm not fully certified as a spiritual director yet, but that is the plan in the next few years. But I have led locally and nationally at wellness events and leadership events. I was remarried in 2020 to the love of my life, Jerry, after going through a divorce in 2012. Again, hello, hashtag grief. And I'm currently deeply grieving the loss of my mom. And you'll hear more about that in this as well. Honestly, my mom was sort of the inspiration for a lot of this grief work. She was very open about her own grief journey. And these were some of the things that I learned from her. Sometimes we can feel afraid or angry or sad and really have no bearing for that, no reason for that. Reason, if you need a reason to feel those things. But we realized in some of her work as a counselor, we realized that some people feel a lot of the pain of grief much later after it has passed. And so really understanding those feelings of grief and sadness, looking them in the eye, embracing them, and sort of enveloping them into our life, it can be a really healing part of living wholeheartedly. And this doesn't have to just be grief from someone's illness or passing, like I mentioned about my divorce. That was grief. That is still grief in a lot of, and very fresh and raw and real for my kids and how we all kind of move through the world now. Also daily routine, if that changes, maybe you have a child that's going to go off to kindergarten or college. Maybe that's changing things. Maybe you have an aging parent that needs more care and love from you or actually time from you. Perhaps you're changing jobs. Maybe you've retired recently and you're looking for what's next. But all of those circumstances, that transition, that change can evoke grief, old, new, or some form of it as we grow. And people got freaked out when I started calling this, work for midlife women. But truly, that's what I am. That's who I'm called to be with. People who are, on 10 years earlier than me and 10 years later, 20 years later than me. But women in midlife who are struggling, who are finding it difficult to say goodbye to the young person of their 20s, or maybe say hello to a 60s or 70-year-old self, because it changes a lot of our life circumstances and things just aren't what they used to be. And so, of course, that can also mean that our friends or our family change because of circumstances related to death and loss. And we just learn to flex with that, or we don't, which is sometimes seems to be easier for a lot of folks. And I think we feel the obstacles, right? This kind of goes right hand in hand with that. We don't want to take on sort of looking at our hurts and our fears. We don't want to take on really examining our grief for what it is, because we are kind of scared. Like, what if we open that box and we can't get out of it? And who's going to help us? What if that evokes a lot of feelings and a lot of tears and a lot of sobbing and a lot of releasing? Maybe we won't have time in our daily lives because something's calling us to the next thing. When do we take time to do that? And we have so much societal expectations or family expectations from people who are trying to be understanding of what we're going through, but also want to encourage us to stay strong and capable, and really show up for them like they're used to. And sometimes it's just not possible without some inner reflection and inner evaluation. Truly, you know most of my story. You know that we were heartbroken that my mom was diagnosed with cancer in June of 2021. She lived healthily and happily with that diagnosis for 16 months before she passed in November of 2022. It was really hard to understand. It still is really hard to understand how a perfectly seemingly healthy woman got lung cancer and subsequently died. And now we've been sort of picking up the pieces since then, because we worked together, we did life together. She was a huge support person. She's still #1 on my favorites list on my phone. I want to call her about this tonight, but I called my dad instead. And he was really happy for us being able to meet tonight. And I'm glad that he's been able to fit into that at times, but I miss her. And so I knew through my own healing that I wanted to invite other people to link arms and do this, not because I know what I'm doing and not because I'm an expert, but because I'm living it and I'm authentic and I'm inviting people into that conversation. And I just feel completely honored every time someone says, thank you for sharing what you're sharing, because it's helping me come to terms with some of the things that I didn't understand about what I've been going through. And I just feel really honored by that. So what would it look like if you removed the obstacles to your inner peace and really encountered other women who got you, who understood, not necessarily what you're exactly going through, but at least understood the need that you have for putting the pieces back together without having to put on a mask or pretend everything's okay. I think I found a lot of women don't find some of the grief groups to be incredibly helpful, because it opens their wounds without really sort of giving them any salve for those wounds. And so I just ask you to consider what it would feel like to honor your grief and live in harmony with the present moment. How do you integrate what I call soul care, your spiritual depth, and not just devotionals, but truly that inner guidance system, God within you, speaking in you and for you and with you in the parts of your life that need that to achieve sacred healing. What would it look like to live a full and balanced lifestyle? Where are you kind of pushing off your priorities because this other thing sort of weighs heavy on your shoulders? But again, remember, we're not just talking about the loss of a loved one. We're talking the heaviness of transition, the heaviness of change, the heaviness of the difference of what was and what could be. When and how do you move with grace through the season? And how do you get clear enough and quiet enough that you can really focus on those things that are special memories of the past, that are things that you want to take with you into the present and into the future? All right, so this is an opportunity to do some of those healing, I think, what are healing pieces through a spring retreat, where I've crafted a schedule that allows you and empowers you with tools and resources that really do help you do grief in real life. I love Shay's title of her book, because it's not like we can just heal grief and be good and like, yep, check that off the list, did that, healing grief. But really, how do we embrace it within our daily life? And how do we do it in community with others, supportive community with others? I'm so excited to bring this next group together as we embark upon this journey. The basic details, the 11th through the 14th, it's a Thursday through Sunday model. So it does require maybe a couple of days off of work. On Thursday, I'm going to tell you more about when to arrive, but we'll check in the afternoon. And then we'll close our session at in the morning on Sunday. And I think it's just going to be a beautiful, it just seems to be a good amount of time that people feel like they can come and really plug in. And we do it in Carlsbad, California, as my mom intended. I did invite two special guests to come help with some of the leadership this time around. Michaela Burbank, who's on the call and said hello and got me unmuted early. I told her I'm going to need her to be my right-hand girl. She became a widow at the age of 31. She studied and worked in the mental health field since 2013 and received her master's degree in professional counseling from Denver Seminary in 2017. And I wanted to highlight her book that was published in 2023, because again, titles are everything, right? Words are everything. And there are absolutely no words. And this is a journal from one widow to another. And this is just one of several books that she has kind of cooking in her mind. But the thing that I love most about Michaela, I got to meet her this summer, and I got to, I think the sweetest part about meeting her this summer is that I met her through teaching her daughter Juniper swimming lessons. And it was just a real treat to know who she is and how she's raising Juniper, who's about 3.5 now, after her dad had passed away, and just tragically, and how she is again doing grief in real life, and showing Juniper how much her daddy loved her through her daily care and considerations of Juniper's life. So Michaela, thanks for being on tonight, and thanks for being part of this retreat circle with us this weekend. I'm really looking forward to learning and growing with you. Another special guest is one of our first our first Compassionate Women's Retreat attendees, Sheila Johnson. Sheila is from the East Valley here in Phoenix, and I met her through Young Living Essential Oils, and she has loads of background at SWIHA, one of the premier healing arts institutes in the United States. My brother is also a SWIHA grad, and she guides people in creating the life of their dreams. And Sheila she offered to come back, and she's actually going to stay with a cousin that she reconnected with during our first retreat, and just come in and help us with a visioning activity one afternoon. And I'm really looking forward to what comes out of that for each of us, because she realized during the first retreat in October that she had a new me to live into and a responsibility to guide others toward the path they're destined to follow. And so, of course, it just made sense to bring her gifts to our next group as well. So imagine, these are some of the things you can imagine, right? If you haven't visited Carlsbad, California, you may not know the special village feel that it truly has. A walkable, bikeable area. Also driving. Don't worry if you have like physical limitations. I had 2 kids on crutches this weekend, and we managed to get them around just fine. But an opportunity to relax with kindred sisters. We have a hot tub on property. You can also do yoga on the beach with us. We also are prepared to help you find the rest and inspiration you've been craving, to receive some spiritual coaching and guidance, to help renew yourself, to be tender about your pain and loss and our pain and loss collectively, while also connecting with our true desires to create an inspired action plan moving forward. And also beginning to think about how to use art and music to get inspired for the next chapter. Again, don't feel pressure. I'm not your artsy craftsy girl, but I am somebody who says through creative expression, so much is born that we can't just process with our words. So if you are someone who is a practicing Christian or a Jewish person or a Muslim person, or you don't have a spiritual background, but you feel called and led to this, I want to make sure that the invitation is open to all. And I really try to be sensitive about that with my language. If you've been to a church women's retreat in the past, this may look and feel a lot differently than that, mostly because I want the experience to be inclusive and really help people get outside the box of their religion and really experience the beauty of what the Holy Spirit brings when people are gathered together. Oh, and also remember, you don't have to have experienced grief through death or loss. I want to be really clear about that. So again, please know that the invitation is really wide open. That's why I've been having one-on-one conversations with a lot of you, because just to help clarify how you can come into this space and receive the healing and hope that you need, regardless of your experience or how you've encountered grief. All right, here's a few pictures of our retreat location. Again, as I said to you earlier, in 2015, my mom said, I really feel called to find a property in Carlsbad, California. It is my happy place. And she and my dad were in a position to make that happen. And so they found this treasured property that has become our home away from home, truly. And her dream was always to host retreats. So we've had several leadership retreats as a part of our Young Living Well Now business. My brother has had men's retreats and couples retreats and people's retreats, right, in general. I've now started, this is my third retreat. I had my first one with my mom in 2018, but this is the second one of the model of Compassionate Women's Retreat. I'm just really glad for that. And part of it is about pushing and encouraging my mom's legacy, right? My mom loved to get people together and have these intimate, deep conversations. And so I just feel her presence so much when I get to be part of something like this. So these are just a couple of photos of our backyard and of course our living space where we'll do most of our gathering. We are probably going to have an extension of where we're going to stay. So I have reserved the house next door, the adjacent home. My brother and sister-in-law live in the front home. And then there's a home in the back, and then there's a next door neighbor who's going to rent us their home. And that will allow us to have space for 4 shared rooms, so up to 8 people in those shared rooms. And we're about halfway full on that with those of you who've given me your verbal commitments. And then we have 4 individual rooms. And the thing to know about the shared rooms, this is the campy part for me. I want you to come in with an open mind about sharing with another woman. There are 4 rooms that have king size beds. It worked out really well in the first round to do that. The women were very accommodating. I don't know if anybody slept well. Mickey, you might have something to say about that. They were all up at the crack of dawn most mornings, but bless their hearts. It really lent itself to creating that connection with people. But we also have earplugs and white noise machines and things like that to make sleeping accommodations much easier. But if you do think you'd prefer an individual room, those are queen size beds. And I think there's one full if you choose to upgrade to an individual room. There is a deposit that you can pay of $300 to indicate your interest. And that is linked on the website. I'll share that with you at the end. I'm going to say more about scholarships as well. But truly, a weekend intensive like this is transformational in so many ways. And that was what my mom was all about. It was about offering transformation to people through experiences, through connection, through essential oils, through elevating our lifestyles, and just creating a personhood, a womanhood of wellness, purpose, and abundance. And so this may be an opportunity for you to jumpstart your healing and growth. You may begin some new foundational practices that help guide your daily decision. You may increase the depth of relationships with other women and newfound friends. I'm really excited to have some touch points with the women this weekend who are gathering because one of the women flew in from Indiana to be part of our retreat in October, and she's come out this weekend. So you'll see some photos of us having some fun while she's in town this weekend. And then also, I believe anytime we get an experience, a spiritual experience, it really does sometimes call them mountaintop experiences, right? Where we sense God's presence in those thin spaces. And I think that helps inform a more positive experience of who God is and who the divine truly is in our lives, and how we can better serve ourselves and humanity through the belief in a higher power. So starting in March, we're going to do a little bit of deep dive for those of you before the retreat. Just 1 or 2 sessions. No big commitments. They'll be located in the Soul Care Sanctuary format. So very, very casual, come as you can. And we're going to just use some of those clear expectations to help guide your way forward so you're on your way there in April when we gather. You've already done some of the work ahead of time. My friend Amy shared this about how beautiful it was to be at a retreat in Carlsbad. In fact, she calls me every time or texts me every time that she goes to Shore House, which is one of her favorite breakfast places in Carlsbad, and she just remembers that's such a balm like of a place for her, because she came when it was a really difficult time, and now she feels such a presence when she's there now. After 5 years, she's remarried and a grandma, and she's just really living her best life. And then Sherry, I really appreciated what she had to say from our last retreat, realizing that grief experiences were really broader than we may have thought. She really enjoyed the group setting, and it was no doubt, she said, spiritually inspired with the connection between the attendees, the facilitator, and the hosts. And I just feel really grateful for that kind of feedback, because that is what we're trying to put forward. Okay, so this next part is a little bit of the details. If you are planning to attend, these are also in the FAQs on the website, and we will talk through, we'll have at least one group call for sure 2 weeks out from our meeting time, so that I can clarify all of these extra things and you all can kind of meet each other. But in general, we always wear layers and pack perhaps for some rain while we're in Carlsbad. Although this picture of Sherry, it was quite sunny when we were there in October, and I expect it to be the same in April. Also, we will have some opportunities to share special music or artwork. You should bring, if you have preferred snacks, we'll talk about dietary things. Those of you who are registered, I'm going to send out a form where you can tell me some of the things that you need to make sure we have on hand for you, because the refrigerator becomes your domain and you get to have the snacks and do the things. And yes, having plenty of drinking water on hand is kind of a must. San Diego is the closest airport. For those of you driving over, we can try to coordinate some carpooling, but I'm going over earlier, so I won't be a part of that. But do schedule your airline tickets for afternoon of Thursday, if you can get in by 1 p.m. That gives us plenty of time to get up the 5 to Carlsbad without too much of a delay with rush hour traffic. And then on Sunday, if you schedule your departure flight for after 2, that should give us to arrive at 2, that should be able to give you enough time to make like a 4 o'clock flight. And sometimes the evening flights are a little less expensive. So hopefully you can adjust that as you find the right flights, and be in touch with me. We can talk through some of that. All right, I already discussed accommodations and check-in. Okay, so for those of you who are in our Soul Care Sanctuary, I do give a $100 discount, and I've given out that code a couple times already, so I'm really excited that it's working, because that's always my fear, is that tech isn't going to work, but that's going great. And then there is an opportunity to earn an up to $200 scholarship from the LWN Foundation. Now, LWN stands for Living Well Now, and that is my mom and dad's Young Living business that they created an arm for living in perpetuity, and the legacy continues. Created that in 2014. And so you can apply for a scholarship to help offset the cost of the retreat, or to offset the cost of the airline or travel or whatever, just by filling out an application. It actually goes to Aaron Lehman, and he is checking his email. It's on a different system that he's not used to checking, so he's going to get back with everybody in the next couple of weeks. So that information is linked on the FAQ site of the website for this retreat. And then please, if you do need to cancel for any reason, if you cancel before March 21st, I'll provide you a full refund less a $50 processing fee. But cancellations made after that, I'd just love to credit you to a future event or program. I am planning a third retreat in this opening trifecta, I called it, that will happen in October of 2024 as well. All right, so you'll leave this weekend a feeling of deep rest, soul care renewal, a new, deeper self-compassion for your grief, disappointments, embarrassments, and even your failures. A true celebration of your divine goodness and worth, a vision for the next chapter of your life, and relationships with women that will become lifelong friends and champions. And y'all, somehow the slide about the food got deleted. So I'm real sorry about that. Darn, I have to go back and figure out where I stuck that. Here's the deal. I provide the food. So you'll have snacks, like I said, in the refrigerator, but we're going to do meals together. There's breakfast options for you. There's lunch options. You're always welcome to do your own in town. But I will provide that for you. And then one of the evenings we go out, unless we decide to go out for a morning, and then it's a brunch. So we'll have to decide what we feel more like, because there's great options in both of those areas. But tonight my dad was having dinner with his family in Oceanside. And I said, oh, I might have to go to that pizza place for our next event for the retreat evening out, because that's a treat from me to you as part of your registration fee as well. So room and board basically is covered, leadership, swag, all of that. And I don't have that slide to show you. Here are some upcoming things for the Soul Care Sanctuary. If you use the QR code that's on your screen, that'll hook you up with the information to join our Soul Care Sanctuary. If you've been thinking about it, come join us for a few months and check it out and see what you think about our meetings. We have been meeting on Thursdays, and Mondays at 6 p.m. Every event is going to start at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard. But I offer a Aroma Freedom session every month, as well as 2 care circles, which is basically a sharing circle with some coaching and feedback as we think about our goals and directions for the month and for the coming year. All right, if you are ready to register, you can text the word retreat to my, this is my business text number. The word retreat will get you a link to the website. 623-439-4910 is the number, and then just text the word retreat. 623-439-4910. This is my contact information. You can find this on my website, AngelaLehman.com. You can also email me at Angela. I have several email addresses. Sometimes people get them lost and mixed up, but they all come to me, and I see everything. So Angela@AngelaLehman.com is the best way to get in touch. And the last thing I wanted to talk about before we get off the call tonight, that was pretty much the kind of gist of the retreat. Hopefully that's been helpful to you, and you've seen maybe ways that you can plug in either on a short-term basis in our Soul Care Sanctuary, or for a weekend retreat, either in April or maybe in October. I am planning to do more retreats in 2025. So definitely, this isn't a one-shot kind of opportunity. I want to keep offering different groups of women to come together and do this. But what I wanted to talk about to close out tonight, and I mentioned it in an email that I sent out. If you're not on my email list, let me know so I can get you added. Like, send me a message with your email address, and then I can get you added to my email list. But in 2022, basically, I put together this soul care kit, and I'm going to revamp it a little bit. It's missing some updated pieces. Anyway, doesn't matter. What is downloadable now has this really great piece in it. I find it really great. And I'm a little biased because I wrote it, but that's cool. I found this wellness wheel from someone, and I know it's really small, probably on your screen, and maybe hard to see, especially if you're on your phone. I tried to zoom in a little bit, but basically, instead of having spirituality be a wedge on the wheel, what if spirituality and soul care was the center of the wheel? What if it was the foundation of our life work, or our life goals, or our life fulfillment? And how do we, and what I mean by that is your spiritual and or religious practices, your beliefs, your ideas about fulfillment and significance, and especially that inner guidance system. And if you went from that place of clarity, soul care clarity, what would it look like then to consider what your legacy and giving wedge looks like? What would your relationships be? Because that's the center of your wellness wheel. How would your health look differently? or your emotions or mental capacity? How would your career or vocation be shaped by soul care? What about your fun, your worldview, and your money and your wealth? And I ask a few leading questions as journal prompts to help you discern. Truly, I think this is helping you discern whether a retreat makes sense to you right now. Because I want to be forthcoming and say it may work for you today, but it may not work for you in 6 months. It may not work for you today, but it may work for you in 6 months. And it may never work for you because of your circumstances. But if you go through the prompts and you're thinking about the kind of person that you choose to become, that the grief that you've already experienced, and or the sadness or the stuck feeling you're having, or the transitional, kind of like um, I sometimes call myself, and I shouldn't, but I also don't should myself anymore. So what do I do? So sometimes I just say, and you're a hot mess, right? So sometimes you come out of the hot mess and you have to look at, and in those times of reflection, think about how am I, the decisions I'm making in my life, how can they be different tomorrow? How can they be different in 3 months? How can they be different in a year? And do I have the skill set and the resources and the things that I need in order to do those, to live that life or become that person? And not that we're not perfect the way we are, not saying that, but I like the idea of a growth mindset where we can encourage ourselves forward through the difficult times. And I've been doing some listening to Adam Grant and another woman that I'm not going to come up with her name right now. Adam Grant, some of you may follow on social media, but his some of his work that he's doing on emotions right now and how well we can name our emotions is really part of living wholeheartedly and living with growth mindset and living with purpose and direction. And that is, I think, part of what I'm called forth to be through. And it's not just about building resilience, but it's about having the fortitude to endure suffering, the fortitude to face our circumstances and difficulties and yet not crumble. So I'll say more about that as we keep going, because that's the nature of this. Is I reflect about me and you reflect about you, and then we kind of compare notes and see where we're at, and we grow and change and transform together. So I know I'm over my time. I'm super glad that y'all were on. I will stay on. I'm just going to stop the recording so that you can ask questions freely as you have them.